I'm CK. Today we've got a module from Sebsongs Modular. It's their bread and butter. It's a polyphonic synthesizer using General MIDI instruments. So we'll see how that all works out, how we can load the banks if they're not already preloaded, how we can get polyphony out of it, and all those interesting things. And I hope you enjoy the video. Let's see what we've got here. I picked this up from thonk.co.uk, as I do many of my modules. There's a build document. I've already got that pulled up. Here's the 2X PCBs, and here I assume is the front panel. Let's open the front panel up first to see what controls we may have in store for us. Yep, flip it around that way. And we've got instruments. I assume that's a rotary switch that's going to switch between banks, hold, shift, and panic. Double press both for panic. Tune, I assume that's a pot. Pan, a pot. Gate, volts per octave. Hold. Instrument, I guess you can probably change that with CV. Bend, velocity. And we've got MIDI in, so we've got to get one of those. I think I've got this. Actually, I'm not sure if I do. Yeah, I do. I've got one of those connectors. Then we've got left out and right out. So that looks pretty straightforward. Let's look at the circuit boards. See how complicated it may be. See if it's already got some surface mount on it, and it does. So here's the front board. And yeah, these are two switches, the panic and the other hold and shift, the rotary pot, bunch of jacks, and that's the MIDI in jack. That should be a green one, I believe. Then we've got the main circuit board. It looks like we've got a daughter board, a Raspberry Pi or Adafruit or something going in there. Not much to do on this board. There's a VLSI. That's probably either here or where the instrument banks probably are. Some caps, nothing much interesting on the back except a couple of pin headers. So that's that. Let's see what we've got inside the bag of all the other bits. There's our take a survey, win 20 pounds off. Sebsongs Modular. Do I have one of these? I should have one of these. I'm looking on my sticker wall. Yep, I got a Sebsongs sticker already, so I don't need that one. Then we've got here's the knobs. I'm always, as you might know, I'm always very interested in the knobs. They're just pure plastic press-ons. Nothing interesting about them. Then we've got some hardware, which is some washers, looks like a spacer or two. And here's the Arduino Nano Every. So that should be what loads. I'll show you where that goes. Here's the little Arduino, probably programmed already. So we'll get some pin headers. Actually, we'll get some pin headers, put them in there, and then mount that like so. Which we've done a number of times. Works out pretty well usually. And let's dump out this bag, which should have two big strips of pin headers, unless they've already pre-cut them, which is always nice when they pre-cut. That bag is empty. Got pots. Let's see, is this the rotary encoder? No, that's another pot. Yeah, this is the MIDI in port, stereo jack. We've got two. I'm not seeing, oh, we've got three. So this, oh no, this is simply resistance. It's not a rotary selector, it's resistance based. because I assume this one is going to go here. This one will go here, and it's simply resistance based to select the instrument bank. Again, I'm speculating on that. I'm not 100% certain, but based on my experience, that's how you're going to switch between General MIDI banks. General MIDI, which has drums, a standard allocation of drums, standard allocation of piano tunings, and other instruments. If you've ever done any MIDI work, I'm sure you've run into General MIDI and the General MIDI spec. If you've only done eurorack with just voltages instead of MIDI, then you might not, but it's not that big a deal. It's just a standard that everybody includes in their synths, but nobody ever uses it because they're pretty boring. I mean, if you're doing music for ads, yeah, sure. But if you're doing anything interesting, you're probably not using General MIDI. Well, that was a very prejudicial statement, wasn't it? Probably not even really true. But that's the way I feel about General MIDI. I remember when it came out, because I'm old, and I said, this is dumb. Okay, so that's the bits and pieces. And I need to do two things. I need to get the soldering iron heated up so we can start putting this together. And I need to find my MIDI to 1/8 inch jack, which I know I have that cable. I just have to find it. So back in a little bit. Found my little MIDI to CV in connector. It was just right under the workbench here. I was so prepared. Maybe. Okay, so the first thing they want us to do is put the power connector on. If we can find it, and it is, where's my pointy thing? It is a keyed connector, and the outline on the board shows you where the keying is, and it also shows a negative here, a minus sign here, which is kind of hard to see or hard to discern, I believe, and it's also going to be covered when the connector is in place, but we can double check it. We can look at the keying, and that's going in keyed, and that will put the red stripe on the negative sign side, so the minus 12 volts is in the right place. Let me flip that over. So let's get the power connector started. And we will do, oops, extra solder on that. We will do one pin, pick it up, see if it's all flat. It's not quite flat, so I'll press on it with my index finger behind the board, reheat that piece of solder. Ow! Burn myself, of course, as I always do. And now it's flat. Also, the backside has a minus sign too, which is good. Often they don't print that on the back, and I appreciate that they did it this time. Now let me solder all these pins. And that is on. What do they want us to do next? And now we're going to do the pin headers here in a second. And since this is facing the back of the rack, as you can tell, since you wouldn't be able to put the power connector in if it was in the middle of the sandwich, now would you? So we're going to do the male ones on this side, on this board. And oops, I'm putting them on the wrong way because I'm an idiot. Put them on like so. Actually, they're sticking in those holes pretty well. I don't have to support them. Wow. That's unusual in my experience. Where is the other one? Let's see if the other one goes in and stays as comfortably. That would be nice if it did. It does. So they're all nice and flat without having to fuss with them much. Where is the other circuit board? I'm gonna do the headers on both boards at the same time, just to make sure they are in lockstep and locked together, so when I put them together now and then take them apart, I know they will fit together later. There we go, all snugged up. And we'll do a couple of pins to make sure everything is still aligned and flat. I think those are. Now we'll flip the sandwich over and do the same on the female pin header. And now we can solder all those connections. The only thing to be careful about is there is a bunch of surface mount stuff in the area. It's not too close. There's quite a lot of space. I've seen surface mount boards that have a lot less space. So this should be relatively, you're not going to have a problem touching the surface mount parts with your soldering iron on this one. And that is that for the pin headers. Now we're going to do the other pin headers, which are for the, what did we decide this was? This is an Arduino Nano Every. No idea what that means. Assembled in Italy. So how do we want to do these? I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? It never really matters. So I'm going to put the female pins on the board. And the male pins will go on the Arduino itself. And of course I always do that. I always set those things down and then forget that I gotta shove them together. Because we're not going to take this Arduino board off once we put it on. There's no reason to. What is interfering here? It feels like the power connector, maybe. No. Now, the Arduino has a USB connector on one end, and there is a note on the board right here that says USB this way. So that's where we want that to go. Now we'll get the cat hair out of the middle of it, and we'll set that on there like so, just like we did with the pin headers connecting to the two boards. And again, a couple of surface mount components reasonably close, but not too bad. This is all wiggly right now because I don't have anything soldered yet. Fix that one. That's that one. Now we'll flip it over. And this one is, I'm going to double check this because I'm at an angle. That's not quite flat. So I'll push the whole stack down a little bit, reheat it. That gets it flat, which kind of by default makes the other side flat because we've already got the Arduino on, but we're going to push on it anyway, just to be sure. All good. Now I'm going to do all the pins on these pin headers. And that is that, and I believe that's all for this board, for this kit. And now I'm reading through what he actually says about it. You know, he's got a lot of pictures in the build guide. It's very good. I'm very happy with that. And everything on this board seems to be done. And again, we have the USB connector facing where it says on the board USB this way. Now we'll go ahead and do the other side, and the first thing he's telling us to do is do the pin headers, but we already did that, so we don't have to worry about that. Now we're going to put all the components on this side, and we've got two different switches, and one is green, has a green dot in the center. The other is yellow, and it has a yellow dot in the center. So we will put them where they go, and there's a flat spot on the circuit board outline, and there's a flat spot on the switch that tells you how to align it. So we'll get that right. If you don't do that, if you get it reversed, things probably won't break, but they will definitely act weird. So just make sure you get those in right. Now we're going to put all the pots on, because I think both of these are the same. I should have looked, shouldn't I? I can look right now. That's 10K and that's 10K, so we're good. Let me get my pins aligned a little bit better there. Now we'll do all the jacks, and remember the MIDI one is tip ring sleeve, so we use the green stereo jack in that position, since all the other ones are mono, just tip sleeve. And you don't want to mess that up, or else you won't get the right signal into your board, and probably won't hear anything. I guess he's got some test points here. I always wish board makers would document the test points. Oh, I see. That's not a test point. That's for MIDI B. We're going to be using TRS MIDI A. And now, let's set the board on there. I mean the front panel on the board. See how it's all fitting together. Make sure the buttons are buttoning, and they are. So what I'm going to do is get my little clamp and clamp it together just for a minute. See how everything looks, because I'm going to have to, you can see these switches, there's slop in the switches, so we'll deal with that in a little bit. But the first thing I'm going to do is solder a couple of connections. Did I don't see the, oh, here it is. In the little bag is the panel nut for the potentiometer, the instrument potentiometer, because I'm going to need that here in a second or two. So I'm going to solder one of the support legs on this pot, and then I'm going to solder 2 pins on the MIDI in. Actually, yeah, I'll do all 3. Now I will grab that potentiometer panel nut, and no, I am not using the washer behind it. I never do. Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's what you got to watch out for with these buttons, is there's enough space between the panel and the circuit board that they can pop on up out of there. But we'll deal with that in a minute. Now we'll put one panel nut on the MIDI in that we soldered down. Snug that up. That's snug. Now we can get rid of the clamp. Everything except the buttons is tight. And to help us with the buttons, I'm going to get a couple of pieces of foam. They usually, when you're doing other boards, they usually ship the integrated circuits in this foam, anti-static foam. Just keep it around, because this is very good for holding things like those buttons in place. So I'm going to do a pin on each of those first. Let it cool. Pick it back up. Double check that they're flat. They are. Double check that they're operating correctly, and they are. I'll try the pots too while I'm in there. Yep, that's all good. Now we'll solder all these connections. And as always, I'll speed it up and probably cut some of it out. So that is that for all the panel components. Now I will put all the panel nuts on. Now we will put our ho-hum pots on, making sure it's all the way counterclockwise for the big one there. Make sure it still moves smoothly. It does. Now he wants to put these sleeves on here, I guess. I really don't know why. Because I've already got markers on the pot knobs, but that's okay. Next thing, so we will put the Arduino and other logic boards on. I'm going to make an assumption. I'm sorry, I was going to make an assumption, but I changed my mind. I won't, because I don't know. And we'll put the power connector in its place. And there, that's it. A very quick and easy build. Nothing too challenging about it. Lots of space for soldering, even with surface mount components on there. This is the front. Buttons work fine. This is the side. That's the back, again with the USB connector facing this way. The other side, the top, and the bottom. Now we'll put it in the rack and see what it sounds like. We're all in place, and I didn't say this explicitly, and I should have. You don't need to use MIDI to use this, so you can use regular CV. I'm going to power up now, see if anything catches on fire. Nope, everything seems to be working well, and I'm sending a signal in from my sequencer. That's why the ship button is firing off, but we'll take that out for right now. Where is that one? That's this one. You can use this with CV just fine. The addition of MIDI allows you to do a lot of polyphony. You can, again, it's got, I forget how many voices it has. It has a lot of voices. So the first thing we do, at first power up, the octave setting for tuning is set to 0 because the EEPROM hasn't been programmed. Hold shift and turn the tune knob to its center position. So hold shift, turn the tune knob to its center position, down because as you notice the pots were a little offset. And now we're fine. Now let's go to the user manual, which I just had up and I don't know what I did with it. And pretty much what you would expect. So we've got 128 instruments in different banks, and it does standard MIDI stuff. Polyphony of 64 voices, and you can, if you want to do a chord, for example, with this, you could press hold and trigger like 3 different notes all at once, or actually in rapid succession, and it would pick that up as a chord. So what I want to do first, turn the knob to select banks and instruments. So I think we're in bank 1. So we'll do this. We'll hold shift and make sure we're in bank 1, and the LED should flash there. You can see it flashes when you move to a different bank because these numbers are not very precise. So we're in bank 1. I'm going to turn this on and let's just listen. Oh, I don't have any output. I didn't have my output plugged in. We'll go to left, we'll go to mono out here and see. What did they do? Where did they take my clock signal? There it is. I'm sorry. So I'm tuning it down a little bit. And the tuning is global. So that's one bank. Let's move to another bank. And now we can switch instruments by just rotating without holding shift. I'm going to speed the sequence up just a little bit. There's the percussion. Let's shift banks for the percussion. I want to hear what other banks he's got there. Nice enough stuff. I'm going to pan full left. Now we'll press hold. As you can see, that ate up all 64 voices at once. You have to use that strategically. You use that with MIDI, not with what I'm doing right here with CV. So there are nice little synth sounds in here for digital. Yeah. So that sounds what you would expect. I'm going to be a little cruel here. It's fine for a standard soulless General MIDI bank with no tweaking. Again, I've never been a big fan of General MIDI. But it's a good, I wouldn't use it as a lead, but it's certainly good for fills. And now I'm going to connect my silly MIDI connector, and I'm going to disconnect the gate. I'm not getting anything. Am I connected? I don't even know if I'm connected. Well, I'm going to ignore that for now. We'll play with it without MIDI. If you have a MIDI rig, you know how to set that up with your eurorack rig. You know how to work with that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to try some of the CVs. Let's try bend. That's nice to have a little LFO bend in that. Now it's going really fast. Okay, so that's bend. Let's try velocity. So the wave from the LFO is going up and down, and when it's all the way low, of course, you've got zero velocity, so it doesn't trigger. So that's not very interesting. Not very interesting with an LFO. Actually, let me get my third. I don't have a third output there. Can I do this? Yeah, I can do that. Let me grab this out because that should cascade to that. And I gotta find another cable, a long cable. Sorry, wiring on the fly. Oh no, I do have another output there. Never mind, I didn't even have to do that. So if I tie the velocity, that should... change some instruments. Well, that sounds pretty neat, doesn't it? Put some bend in. And again, every time the green LED flashes, that means I've changed instrument, or when I've got the shift held down, I've changed the bank. So that's the basic capabilities. I'm going to read a little bit on what else shift may do, so there may be a camera skip or speed up here. So the only other thing I can see for the shift, you can also, if you hold shift down and you pan, that pans the whole rig, not just the one instrument you're working with. The other thing you might notice here, look at the amperage. It's pulling 30, it's looking like maximum of 40 milliamps. Let me switch to see what max was. Boot up max was 50, but it's running at 30, and on the negative rail it's running at 14. This is a really efficient unit. You could add 5 of these to your rack for the power that another module might take. Okay, I'm gonna take the bend out. Now I'm gonna do something else goofy here, and I'm gonna plug the LFO into instrument, and hear it change instruments on the fly. I'm gonna speed that up even more. Actually, slow it down is probably better. Because as the wave is ramping up and ramping down, it's swapping instruments. Let's change bank again. Little bit chaotic, that's kind of fun. And I am going to put bend back in because I love it. I don't know if you can dance to it, but it sounds pretty cool. So that's it, bread and butter from Sebsongs, and I think they named it bread and butter, kind of what I've been being snarky about General MIDI. It's a general basic bread and butter synthesizer. Not a lot. You can't do a lot with filtering. You can't do a lot with envelope changes. You can't do a lot with everything that you'd want to do. Why we build eurorack rigs, or even customized sounds on, like, my Kurzweil, for example. But this is a very solid unit. The power is superior. Very easy to build. Sounds nice. The samples are all really good. I'm going to pull the instrument one back out again and bend and velocity back out. Could give you, one thing it would give you is it could give you nice percussion, as you can tell. So that's it, and a good unit from Sebsongs, and I can definitely see using this as a utility module in the studio for fills and backgrounds and so on. And I hope you enjoyed the video.